They dragged me by my leg and slapped my head just because of a chicken. I was only 8 years old. I didn't kill the chicken. I didn't break anything. I only chased it away from the millet my mother was drying in the sun. But that one mistake was all they needed. That day, grown adults stormed into our compound, pointed at me like I was an animal, hit my head with their palms, and called me a witch. If you scream too loud, no one will come. If you stay too quiet, they'll say you're hiding something. Either way, they will still blame you. That's what I learned at 8 years old, in the middle of a dusty compound, face to the ground, with tears staining the red earth beneath me. If you're watching this, please subscribe, like, share and comment your thoughts. It helps YouTube sees us. My name is Rebecca. I live with my mother, my father, and my younger sister Ruth in a 2-room face me I face you building tucked somewhere on the edge of town. Life here moves slowly, the type that tastes like boiled rice with no salt, like lukewarm water when you need something cold. But it was our life, and we were content with the little we had. My mother hawks akamu in the morning and sells kerosene in the evenings, moving from house to house with a worn-out gallon and her rough voice calling, "Kerosene oh! Fresh akamu oh! Buy for your family oh!" She came home tired, but she never let us go to bed hungry. That was her promise. One of her regular customers was a woman named Mommy Chinyu. She wore gold bangles that clinked as she moved and always had a sharp tongue dipped in poison. She would buy kerosene on credit and say things like, "Just small tin, I beg. I go pay tomorrow," yet tomorrow never came. She owed us more than 5 bottles. My mother never fought her for it, perhaps out of fear or fatigue. Or maybe she knew the cost of crossing certain women in the neighborhood. I didn't know what it meant to be hated until people started looking at me like I was dirt clinging to clean slippers. They never said why. It was just the way they whispered when I passed. The way their children would suddenly stop playing when I joined. The way grown women would smile at Ruth, then roll their eyes when I greeted them. I became scared of going outside, scared of laughter that could turn to insults, of eyes that stared too long, of words that cut deeper than cane. But one Wednesday morning, a public holiday, my mother needed to go to the market early, so she left Ruth and me at home. I told myself maybe this day would be different. Maybe today they wouldn't look at me like that. I stepped outside. Children were playing 10-10 and catcher in the compound. Laughter floated through the air, light and careless. I walked toward the corner where the smaller children played. I didn't even plan to join them, I just wanted to be near Joy. That's when I saw her, a tiny toddler with thick cheeks and bare feet, sitting alone in the sand. She had something in her hand. I moved closer. My stomach turned. It was chicken poop, wet, greenish-brown, warm under the morning sun, and she was just about to put it into her mouth. "Hey! Stop that!" I shouted, and rushed toward her. Before I could stop myself, I slapped the mess out of her hand. She blinked. Paused. And then she screamed. I panicked. "No cry, I beg. I'm helping you," I whispered, bending beside her. She only cried louder. I looked around, a few children had started watching. I backed away, hands shaking. 2 minutes later, I heard the worst sound ever. Mommy Chinyu. She marched toward me like thunder with 2 legs. Her wrapper flapped behind her like an angry flag. "You! Witch!" she screamed. "You touched my child. You this dirty, evil thing." I was just helping her, she was about to eat poo, I tried to explain. Slap. Her palm connected with my cheek before I could finish the sentence. My face stung, and a sharp ringing pierced my left ear. Another slap. My legs buckled. My knees hit the ground. A third blow never came, not because she was done, but because the neighbors had started gathering. Some watched with bored faces. Others murmured, "She deserves it. That girl has always been strange. I know, trust her eyes." I cried. And I stayed there, on the ground, until my mother returned from the market. She dropped her basin of tomatoes when she saw my swollen face. "Who did this to you?" she asked. I told her. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She walked calmly across the compound, saw Mommy Chinyu's son standing nearby, grabbed him by his shirt, and slapped him hard. "That's how it feels when someone touches your child," she said. He ran, crying. He fetched his mother. What happened next felt like war. Words flew like stones. "You don't respect yourself. You are a shameless debtor and a wicked gossip. Your daughter is a witch. You're a thief and a madwoman." Then came a punch. Mommy Chinyu's heavy palm crashed into my mother's nose. Blood. So much of it. My mother staggered backward, one hand pressed to her face, her eyes wild with fury and pain. And everyone watched. They watched, but no one helped. The next day, rumors spread faster than fire. Rebecca slapped a baby. She has spiritual problems. She needs deliverance. She killed a chicken with her eyes once. She's not normal. Even children started avoiding me like I was contagious. They'd whisper and giggle when I walked by. If I greeted an adult, they'd hiss or pretend not to hear me. At night, I would curl beside Ruth, her small arms wrapped around my waist. I wouldn't cry then. I would just stare into the ceiling and wonder why God let me be born into a place where love was rationed and hatred was served freely. I didn't ask for attention. I didn't ask to be different. All I ever wanted was peace. I don't remember the first time I stopped hoping that school would be a safe place. Maybe it was the day I raised my hand to answer a question and got mocked for being overzealous. Maybe it was when the class laughed at me because of my patched uniform and worn sandals. Maybe it was when I overheard my class teacher, Miss Obianuju, telling another staff member that some children are born to cause sorrow. But it didn't matter when it started. What mattered was that I knew, without doubt, that school was no longer refuge, it was another battlefield. That Monday after the holiday, I walked into class with swollen cheeks and the leftover sting of Mommy Chinyu's slap throbbing behind my ears. I hoped no one would notice. I hoped for invisibility. But silence doesn't protect you when people have already decided who you are. As we stood on the assembly ground, I saw it, the looks. Whispers floated between lips. A boy snorted, "That's the girl they said slapped a baby." "Which girl?" Another girl laughed, covering her mouth. "She has bad luck. My mummy said I shouldn't go near her." My stomach turned. When I tried to focus on the national anthem, I couldn't even remember the words. I just mouthed "Arise, O compatriots," and hoped the ground would open and take me. In class, it got worse. I was always a quiet student. I read, I listened, I tried to answer questions. Not to prove I was smart, just to prove I existed. But Miss Obianuju never liked that. "Raise your hand if you know the answer," she said during social studies. I raised mine. She looked directly at me and smirked. "You again? Have you not caused enough trouble in this school and your community? Sit down." The class burst into laughter. I felt my throat dry up. I stared at the floor. My heart pounded. Someone behind me whispered, "Empty barrel. She's just acting book smart." I should have cried. I should have yelled. But I just stayed silent, laughing along faintly, like pretending it was funny would hurt less. It didn't. During break, I walked to Miracle's class. Miracle was the only person who didn't throw harsh words directly at my face. She let me sit with her sometimes. She even offered me a sweet once. But I'd heard her talk about me too. "She's not bad," she once told another girl, "but something is off about her. You know, like bad energy." That cut deeper than insults. Still, I went to her class. And she smiled. I asked her how her test went. She said, "Fine," then paused and said, "You should be careful. My aunt said there are spirits that follow people. I think you just need prayers." I nodded. Of course. That was always the answer. Prayers. Cleansing. Deliverance. Never kindness. As I left her class, the hallway was unusually crowded. Boys were playing rough, too rough. I tried to walk quickly, clutching my books. Someone shouted, "Watch out!" And then, bang! My body hit the floor. My hand slammed against the sharp corner of the stair rail. Pain exploded in my palm. Blood pooled instantly. The boys ran off laughing. I didn't remember much after that. Just colors. Screams. A teacher lifting me. Then white. Cold. The smell of disinfectant. The sting of spirit on open flesh. I was in the hospital. My hand had a deep gash that needed stitches. My mother sat beside me, her eyes tired, her face blank. My father stood near the window, rubbing his chin like he was confused about where his life had led him. They didn't cry. They didn't yell. They were just there. The doctor asked what happened. I opened my mouth, and nothing came out, not because I didn't want to speak, but because I knew it didn't matter. The school said it was an accident. No one apologized. No punishment was given. It was as though my pain was invisible. I went back home with a bandaged hand and the silent message written on my skin, "Learn to survive. No one is coming to save you." At school, I was called brittle bone, walking danger, and accident girl. I had started to break from the inside, pieces crumbling quietly in corners no one noticed. That term, I dropped from 3rd position to 14th. My mind had become a maze of fear and numbness. Reading became hard. Writing was harder with my injured hand. The noise in class now felt like voices in my head. When the result came out, my classmates laughed. "She's finally where she belongs." Too much spiritual attack. "I told you book no fit help her." And through all of it, Miss Obianuja said nothing. She only called me aside one afternoon and whispered, "This is what happens when stubborn children refuse correction. Maybe this failure will humble you." I looked at her and nodded. But in my chest, something shifted. I stopped wanting approval. I stopped trying to explain. I stopped believing that being good was enough to be safe. At home, I didn't talk much. I just helped with chores, looked after Ruth, and avoided eye contact with neighbors. They still hissed when they saw me. One even crossed the street when I walked by, muttering something about demons. Then one Saturday afternoon, I was sweeping the compound. My mom had dried millet on a mat outside. A chicken came and started scattering the grains. I picked a stick, not to hurt, just to scare it away. But my hand was still weak. My swing was stronger than I meant. It hit the chicken's leg. It let out a sharp, horrible scream and limped away. I froze. A boy saw it. He ran. Minutes later, I heard shouting. People burst into our compound like a mob. "Come out! Wicked girl! She broke the chicken's leg. She's evil. She needs deliverance." Before I could step back inside, someone grabbed my leg and dragged me to the open. Palms slapped the back of my head. Fingers pointed at my face. One woman spat near my feet. It was never about the chicken. It was about me, and what they thought I was. I tried to explain. I cried. I begged. They shut me down. They called me a witch. Again. And just like that, I went back inside, knelt on the floor, and cried until I felt nothing. When my mother returned, I crumbled in her arms. "Mummy," I asked, "why does everyone hate me?" She held my face and whispered, "Because you are marked for greatness, my daughter. They see your star, and they want to dim it." But I was tired of hearing that. Because stars don't bleed. Stars don't cry alone. Stars don't get dragged in the dirt. Do they? They say even the darkest soil can birth the brightest flower. But what they don't tell you is how many storms that flower must survive before it blooms. Months passed after the chicken incident, and the gossip in the compound took a new direction. Some said I was cursed. Others said my family needed cleansing. One woman suggested I should be taken to a mountain for 3 days of dry fasting and midnight prayers. But I didn't go anywhere. I stayed. I endured. I learned. My mother started taking Ruth and me to her friend's house whenever she had to go out. The woman lived 2 streets away. Her home was calm, no yelling neighbors, no suspicious glances, no accusations waiting behind every corner. Her children played like children were supposed to, with laughter that didn't sound like mockery. For once, I felt peace. Until peace, too, was stolen. One afternoon, I was pressed and went out to ease myself behind the house, where there was a patch of red earth and some tomato and pepper plants. I avoided the crops, careful not to step on any stems, but just as I was adjusting my wrapper, she appeared. Mommy Chinyu. Like a shadow. Like smoke from a fire that refuses to die. She stormed toward me, arms flailing. You think I won't catch you one day? She screamed. You just came here to uproot my crops. You want to destroy my food like you destroyed your mother's peace? I stepped back. I didn't touch anything. I only came to. Liar. You want people to believe you're innocent? She spat on the ground. You'll see. By evening, the story had changed shape. She was caught urinating on the crops. She uprooted the peppers and stepped on the tomatoes. She did it to revenge the slap. She must be dealt with. Again, people believed her. Again, I became the villain. Even the children in the peaceful house started avoiding me after that. I didn't tell my mother at first. But that night, she found me crying into the wrapper I used to sleep. She didn't ask what happened. She just said, some lights take longer to shine. But when they do, even the sun must watch. That week, something strange happened at school. We were selected for an inter-school competition. It was a debate. I didn't volunteer. I didn't even raise my hand. But the new principal, a tall man with soft eyes and a calm voice, pointed at me. You, he said. You'll lead the junior team. I blinked. Sir? I've been watching you. Your essays are sharp. You write with pain, but also power. No teacher had ever spoken to me like that. At home, I practiced my speech every night. Ruth clapped each time I recited it. My mother made space for me, even if it meant sweeping the compound earlier or delaying dinner. She believed in me like her life depended on it. The competition day came. I stood on the stage, voice trembling at first, but as I spoke, I felt something lift. Like layers of dust peeling off my chest. I spoke about youth education and resilience, but what I really talked about was myself, a girl dismissed, mocked, humiliated, still standing. We won. When I returned to school, the principal shook my hand in front of everyone and announced I was being given a 1-year scholarship. The class went silent. Even Miracle blinked in disbelief. Miss Obianuju didn't clap. She just smiled that tight, plastic smile, the one people wear when they're being forced to accept a truth they tried to bury. After that, the whispers changed. Some now said I had something special. Others called me sharp brain. The same mouths that mocked my fall now wanted to taste my rise. But I didn't trust them. I kept to myself. Then came the day I heard something that would shake everything I thought I knew. It was after school. I'd stayed behind to clean the blackboard. I passed by the staff room window, which was slightly open. I heard voices. Miss Obianuju and Mommy Chinyu. She's becoming too confident, Miss Obianuju said. Mommy Chinyu replied, that's what happens when children aren't put in their place early. Didn't I tell you to make her life hard in that class? She's winning scholarships now, Miss Obianuju said, the principal likes her. It's becoming dangerous. They laughed. And I felt cold. The teacher who humiliated me. The woman who slapped me. They had been working together. All of it, the shame, the ridicule, the assignments I was left out of, the deliberate mockery in front of classmates, was not just cruelty. It was planned. I walked home in a daze. That night, I barely slept. I realized that I had been gaslit, not just by individuals, but by a system. A web of adults working together to break a child for reasons rooted in jealousy, pride, and a fear of seeing someone rise despite her background. I decided then to document everything, quietly. Every insult. Every humiliation. Every false accusation. I wrote them all in a secret notebook hidden beneath my mattress. Not because I planned to expose them, but because I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining it. Weeks passed. More competitions came. I represented the school again, this time at a state-level quiz. We placed second. The principal called me the pride of the school. My mother was proud. She would walk with her head high in the market now. People who once hissed now tried to greet her with smiles. Even Mommy Chinyu stopped saying my name out loud. But I knew her silence wasn't peace. It was rage. Then, one day, a letter came. It was written in shaky handwriting, sealed in a plain brown envelope. No return address. I opened it. My name is Kim. I am your grandmother. You were never supposed to live that life. They took you away to hide the truth. You are not who you think you are. I froze. The paper trembled in my hand. My heart raced, the door creaked behind me. Ruth entered. Rebecca, she whispered, Mommy Chinyu came again. She's outside. She said. She said she'll make sure you don't finish school. I looked out the window. There she was, standing like a statue, arms folded, eyes burning. A new fear climbed my spine. Who was I, really? And what did they know that I didn't? 7 years. That's how long it took for the fire inside me to rise above the smoke they tried to bury me in. 7 years of carrying scars that no one could see. 7 years of walking with my head bowed while secretly dreaming of raising it high. 7 years of surviving gossip, slander, spiritual labels, beatings, false accusations, and silence. And finally, 7 years later, the girl no one wanted became the girl no one could ignore. It started slowly. The scholarship I received from the school principal opened a door, and through that door came a breeze of change. Competitions, essays, recognition. My name started to appear in school newsletters. Teachers who once mocked me started calling me our golden girl. Parents who once warned their children to stay away from me now asked me to tutor them. But I didn't forget. I didn't forget who clapped when I bled. I didn't forget who watched while I was dragged. I didn't forget Mommy Chinyu. Her shadow still lingered. Even when I left the neighborhood for university, on a full government scholarship, her words followed me like echoes down a long hallway. You're nothing. You'll never be anything. People like you don't shine. But I did shine. In my second year of university, I was awarded the best debater in West Africa. The following year, I was selected to represent Nigeria at an international youth summit in South Africa. The girl they once called a witch, now stood on stages with global leaders. And still, no one from my old neighborhood could say how or why it happened. But deep down, I knew. My mother's prayers. My tears that watered hidden strength. And maybe, the star they all feared really had begun to rise. I kept that letter, the one from Kim, the woman who claimed to be my grandmother. I read it over and over, but it never gave more than a hint. So I started digging. A call to the local council registry. A whispered question to an old midwife my mother once mentioned. An accidental discovery of a birth record that listed my real last name as Ibekwe. I confronted my mother gently. She sat quietly at first, wringing her wrapper in her palms. Then she sighed. Your real mother, she was my younger sister. She got pregnant too early. The family was ashamed. They gave you to me to raise as mine. They thought we could hide you here where no one would ask questions. But why did they let me suffer? I asked. Her eyes filled with tears. I tried. I swear, I tried. But no matter how much I protected you, they saw something in you, something they wanted to kill. And Mommy Chinyu? I asked. Did she know? She nodded. She always suspected. That's why she hated you. Your real father was from a wealthy family. They rejected your mother. And Qingyu was once a maid in their house. She envied your bloodline. She knew who you were. I sat still. Suddenly, everything made sense, the hatred, the bitterness, the obsession with ruining my name. It wasn't about chicken poop. It wasn't about peppers or kerosene. It was about legacy, about envy. About a war I never chose to fight. God has a way of letting silence become judgment. By the time I graduated with first-class honors, Mommy Qinyu's life had begun to crumble. Her first daughter, the one she praised in every conversation, dropped out of university after getting pregnant by a married man. Her second son failed the WAEC 3 times and joined a street gang. Her last child was now known in the community for sleeping around and fighting publicly. People started whispering that maybe it was her family that needed deliverance after all. And then the final blow, she was fired from her job for theft. Caught on camera. No defense. No one stood up for her. She tried to blame it on coworkers. She cried in public. But the same people who once clapped when she insulted me, now avoided her like a curse. Even her ally, Miss Obianuju, was not spared. Her son was expelled from school for assault. Her daughter ran away with a bus driver. Their own stories began to unravel, slowly and painfully, like old sweaters pulled at the seam. Justice didn't roar. It whispered. And it arrived like dawn, quiet, undeniable. I returned to the neighborhood after 7 years. Not to stay. Just to walk. I wanted to see the faces that once looked at me with disdain. And I wanted them to see what grace looked like after the fire. Children now ran up to me asking for selfies. Adults who once hissed offered forced smiles and weak handshakes. Even the women who once called me names now told their daughters, "Learn from Rebecca, oh, she made it without bad behavior." I passed Mommy Qinyu's house. It looked smaller. She was there, sitting in a worn chair, face hollow, eyes empty. Word had it that she had a breakdown. Some said it was depression. Others said madness. She saw me. Our eyes locked. And for the first time, she didn't speak. She didn't insult. She didn't blame. She just looked at me, and looked away. And I realized something. I didn't hate her anymore. She had tried to bury me. But she was the reason I learned how to grow in darkness. Duff final words. Life doesn't always repay pain in the way we imagine. Sometimes, it doesn't roar back. Sometimes, it heals in silence and leaves your enemies to deal with their own echoes. I forgave her, not because she deserved it, but because I refused to carry her poison into my future. Now, when I walk past children who cry in corners, I stop. I talk to them. I remind them, you are not what they say. You are more. You will bloom. Because if I could rise from dirt to light, from which to wonder, from nothing to now, then maybe, just maybe, every child hiding a star inside them can too.